Hi, I'm Lucas Mack, and I'm on a mission to see the hurting get healed and the healed go out and heal others, in order for all of us to experience the true love and light we desire. This podcast is me sharing my journey with you, so you don't feel alone in your journey. Welcome to the Golden Rule Revolution. Hi, everyone. I'm Lucas Mack, and welcome to another episode of the Golden Rule Revolution. It's such a pleasure having you join today, and I'm really excited because I have my brother Zach Smith on, Zach Ivan Smith, specifically, if you find him on Instagram, and I'll put his handle in the bottom of the show notes at the end of the show. You can find that. But Zach and I've had him on previously with another guest, Kyle Stallings, but Zach and I have a beautiful conversation about business, the future, sovereignty, healing, different methodologies of healing, the impact that we can have when we find our personal mission, and just raising consciousness. So it's a beautiful episode. My brother Zach, thank you for joining, and everyone enjoy. My brother Zach, welcome back to the podcast. It's so good to see you and connect with you. I was telling Lauren, my wife, earlier today, I said the very first time I talked to Zach on the phone, I just loved him. And you're just an incredible soul, brother, and such a cool story. And I know you were on a while back with Kyle, and we did all three of us. But I'm glad you're on just yourself and getting able to share your story.
Same. I'm very excited to be here, and I echo what you said. Yeah, I think when you meet someone for the first time and you just see a lot of things the same way, and you're operating in a similar frequency, you just know right away, and you just see someone as a brother, and that's how I felt too. So I always look forward to every time I see you on my calendar when we get to have our check-ins and connect, and I always feel lit up afterwards. So I can't even imagine what we're going to talk about and create today.
Dude, I love it. And shout out to Michael, who connected us and said, you got to talk to this guy, Michael Malacker. Love you, brother. So, we talked the other day about breath work, different modalities of healing. And why don't you just, before we even get into that, share your story, because I think your story, what you've overcome, how you came to San Diego, share your story, brother, because I think it's so cool.
You got it. So, taking it back a little ways, I was originally from a small town in northern Minnesota, and I grew up, all intents and purposes, for pretty normal place. It was a really small town, about 300 people. So, a really small town, but I was a really happy kid, and I developed something called alopecia when I was 7 years old. And that had a pretty big effect on me on that age. I was a really happy kid, but that was pretty devastating. So that causes you to lose all of your hair, on your head and your body. And so, at that age, the last thing you want to be is different, because kids just don't understand different, And so, I went from being really happy to being bullied and picked on a lot. And so that, was a pretty dark time for me as I was navigating that. But, what I know that it taught me a lot was empathy. To really see people for who they are and not what's on the external. And so some incredibly valuable lessons that I learned during that time that have continued to show up for me now in my life. And I'm incredibly grateful for the experience, as hard as it was. But I know that what I did also inherit at that time was this feeling around sixth grade. I remember distinctly this feeling of, I am not going to be a human punching bag anymore. I'm going to be bigger and faster and stronger and better to prove everyone wrong. And so from that time, for me, at that time, it became about sports. So being the best at sports, and, became the all-time leading scorer at my high school in basketball and played in college. And so I had a lot of those successes. And then after that, it turned to business, because that was what was next after I got a basketball injury in college. For me, then it was about business, being the best and the most successful. Because again, it was about proving myself, right? And so I was chasing this, this destination of, when I get here, then I'll get the respect and people will get it. And I got there. I rose very quickly within within the corporate world and became an executive in my early 30s, and made a ton of money, and really more than I needed. And what I realized is this ladder that I was climbing was really on the wrong wall all along. And it hit me pretty hard in a time when I was really starting to fully be on my own journey. And I had done yoga and meditation, throughout my 20s and into my 30s, but I really started to get on my path, and I started to realize that the direction that I was heading was not what I actually wanted. That was not where happiness lied. It didn't lie in a number in a bank account. It didn't lie in running a company or any of the external trappings. And discovering that for me was huge. So I ended up leaving that world after a couple of years of really being a little back and forth, one foot in, one foot out, and I spent a year traveling around the world. Really, I tried to find how I could use my gifts in a way that really contributed to the world, because I knew that that's what I always wanted. I wanted to make a difference in the world, and I wanted to make an impact in a way that I knew I could. And so I visited 17 countries, and I went and sat and learned about meditation and mindfulness from monks in Southeast Asia. And I spent some time trekking gorillas in Africa, and spending time in East Africa, and spending time with the nomadic tribe in Jordan, in Petra, and spending time sleeping in a cave in Petra, and just doing having some really incredible experiences in finding myself and finding out within these cultures what really brought people happiness at all levels. And so through that discovery, and as well as just doing a lot of inner work and doing some programs like ALA, and learning from other people that have been on this path for a long time, I just discovered that for me it was about bringing this work of emotional intelligence and conscious leadership to what actually had me feel so disconnected in the first place, and that's the corporate environment. So being able to do that and now bring what I learned through my own growth and my evolution, to be able to bring that to the corporate world and to show that there's a better way to do business.
Yeah.
So
what with the business side, what is lacking that when you bring in this emotional intelligence concept and just the empathy, what is the opposite of what you're teaching?
Yeah. So what I notice in corporate environments a lot, it's fear driven. It's fear driven success. It's this feeling like we can't show the personal side of ourselves in work, right? It's my work life and my personal life. And quite honestly, people not knowing how to communicate with each other to come to resolution, to come to understanding, so that we can actually be on the same page and work toward things. So that's one of the big gaps that I noticed, as well as people not feeling attached to the work they're doing. So, I think there's a few really basic psychological needs that we all have, like believing that we have a sense of a future, believing that we have a purpose, believing that we're a part of something bigger than ourselves. And these are huge. Yeah. These are huge. It's like air, we need it. It's like food. Right. And if those aren't being met, where we spend 90,000 hours of our life, there's going to be a massive disconnect for people. And so if they're not feeling that and getting that at their work and feeling disconnected there, when they show up at home, they're not showing up for their family. They're not, showing up and being excited to see their wife or playing with their kids. They're, instead so often like turning to ways to numb out, whether that be, alcohol or drugs, or, even if it's just TV,
media, sports,
sports, exactly. Whatever that might be, it's like an outlet to not feel the things that they're feeling.
Yeah.
But if you can help connect people at work to a mission and a purpose, and help them feel like what they do matters and what they say matters, and they actually enjoy and love what they do, it not only helps the individual, the company thrives. They thrive. And so it's a new way of doing business in a way that also raises revenue, and it makes and creates a culture in which people want to come and be a part of, because everyone's looking for that. Everyone wants that.
It's incredible. I love that so much. When I was running my agency and we had staff and I was doing a lot of internal culture building with companies, I would tell these owners, you have the power to build or crush a heart right now by how you speak, what you say, what the mission is of this company, and the way you treat your employees dictates how a child views business. Now, we have an entire generation, I think, that was raised anti-business, anti-capitalism, anti-free market, because not that capitalism's a bad idea or free market is a bad idea or any of these modalities are bad. It's that they saw their parents so burnt out from work, they associated the rejection or lack of love from the parent to the child as they don't want to blame the parent. So they blame the
Yes.
cause of the parent's disconnection. And so I would talk to these business leaders and they're like, it's such a, back then, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, it was still, the boomers were still running the scene, and they were raised by the greatest generation and the silent generation who didn't talk about things. So, the boomers weren't emotionally that intelligent either, not to knock anyone, but that's just the case. And then it bred this anti-free market concept. But I think that's even leaving because, okay, well, you still need a job. You still need to do something and find what your passion is. So I just think it's beautiful. I also, in church and religion, especially in Christianity, they manipulate a verse so that people will tithe to them every 3 weeks. You can guarantee if you go to a church, they're going to give you a message on tithing, like, oh, God. But there is a verse that Jesus says, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Mm-hmm. Now the church has taken it as give us money and show God where your heart is. But that's not what it says. It's where your treasure is. Where do we get our treasure is where we work. So our heart is in our work. And the work that we do, if it doesn't have the greater context of impact in the lives of others, mm-hmm. becomes meaningless, because you can only I'll pay you $100 million, and you're like, so what? I can't spend it. I can't give it away. Okay, what am I doing? So anyway, I just affirm like what you're doing and saying, and it's so beautiful because you're not just impacting the person who works there, you're impacting a family, you're impacting the grocery store clerk who's checking out that family, you're impacting school teachers who have to deal with the children of the parents who now are becoming more engaged. So it's beautiful, brother.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that, and beautifully said, because that's what it's about for me. Is it's the ripple, and that was the place that I saw that I could make the biggest impact on the world that I know is possible.
Yes,
because so much is derived and driven from that. And what you said is so true. I do believe in we're biologically wired to want to contribute and have a mission and purpose. And we can deny that if we want. We can deny that little voice of, no, just keep struggling through, just keep doing it. This is what I'm supposed to do.
Yes.
Dad said, mom said, just get a job, make sure that you're secure. But that voice, if you continue to ignore it, will wear you down and wear you down and wear you down. Right. And you'll never live up to that potential that you probably know deep down that you are always actually thought that you had.
Yes.
And you have to go pursue that. And it takes courage. Yes. But once you do that and you find it, everything opens up and life just becomes easier and it flows a lot more.
It does take courage.
It does. No doubt about it. Because our system is not set up for it always. Our system is set up that you should just get a job and you should become a cog in the wheel so that things move together quickly. But, that's not, I think, also how we work together as a society, because then people aren't using their gifts. People aren't using the things that they can do in a way that benefit humanity, that benefit themselves and their community. And when you can tap into that and understand what that is, it elevates everyone. So it takes some time and following a certain process to be able to discover that. But to me, it's not a get to. It's something I think you have to do if you have the opportunity to do so. If you're blessed to have that.
And also, when I coach my clients, I talk about legacy, and legacy has 5 in how I teach it is there's 5 components of legacy. Your primary relationship with your spouse or partner, that's first, because if that isn't in priority, then everything else falls to the wayside. We have a lot of clients or been around like Invistage or other executive coaching groups where a guy, his company might be $80 million, but one guy specifically whose company was $80 million, his wife left him, and all this attention went on that and the divorce, and the company went under It's a huge company.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned early on, like, okay, got to have the priorities so your partner. The second is children, or your children, or next generation. So what's the impact we can make on the next generation? Number 3 is health, mind, body, and soul. 4 is career, and they should be in this order. And then 5 are friends. And what I tell people is that career is just a means to your mission. So if you're working a job that isn't your mission in life, your fulfillment, the first step is identifying the mission. What are you here to do? What would you give your entire life for to see come to fruition? That's your heart's mission. Now, that can be the focus. And if you have a menial job, well, then it no longer becomes a menial job, because it's the means by which you can support your greater mission.
Yes.
If they don't happen to coincide and find I'm working the W-2, that's my mission. Some people might, but if you don't, you're still okay. But I think you're saying is the mission is such a crucial part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and your mission can be to be the best father and to pass on the next generation to have better opportunities. Like that can be your mission and purpose. But it's important to get really clear on that. And what you said, I think is so important. But talking about having the priorities, right, and showing up in that way, and that's a big part of the evolution project with the corporate coaching program that I do, is that it really works with people on the personal level. And when a company can do that and start to care about I want to help you in all areas of your life. And so I want to help you have the best relationships. I want to have you have the best life experiences. I want to support you with health and wellness. And that's all supported through your company. Then you're going to show up and you're going to feel connected to that company because you're really feeling and experiencing the life that you want. And that's being contributed through your company, right? And so it's this next level of support. And what I find is when people can clean up areas of their life that may not be working as well as they hoped. As an example, I worked with someone very recently who, was with his wife, things just weren't working. They weren't communicating well. They both were developing some bad habits and they were really disconnected. So we worked on that. We didn't talk about anything that was happening in his work life because that part was struggling too. Yeah. And he had success in the past, but we worked just solely on what's going on here. We started there. We got them reconnected through using just languaging and be able to really meet each other and think about what they wanted their relationship to look like and making commitments to each other. And they started to come back together and really thrive. Through that, he started to deliver hundreds of thousands of dollars of new business because he was lit up. He felt supported. He had his partner at home. Yeah. His kids were seeing it. They were lit up and excited. So the work took care of itself. And it was through taking care of that and being able to have this be all encompassing. And that's what I'm talking about, this separation between work and life. But there really isn't separation. And I don't feel like there should be.
That's right. I 100% agree. The siloed way of living is dissected. It's a bifurcated soul, mind. I mean, it's as unhealthy as it can be to have your persona this and switching your persona. Alignment and integration is a whole person. And how can I serve in my capacity at work? How can I serve my capacity at home? How can I serve my capacity in the community? It's still me. And conversely, or I guess also, and what I'm also excited to talk about is the healing part, because if people don't heal, even though they think they're their work persona and their home persona, they're bringing that pain with them wherever they go. It seeps out in maybe different ways, but hurt people still will hurt people.
Definitely.
Yeah, there's I'm trying to think. Gunther Quant, I think is his name. He owned, he was most prolific businessman during Germany and the rise of the Third Reich. He owned the factories that became BMW. He was an advisor to the Third Reich as far as their economic policies went. This guy was a massive player, third generation business owner in Germany. And I used to give this keynote, and I would end the keynote with this. So I talk about Gunther Quant, all the factories he owned, the millions and millions of dollars he produced. He always delivered on time. He never missed deadlines. His clients loved him. He always delivered. But also he had Jewish slave labor in all these camps. And in one of his factories, they would execute at random a Jewish slave working on these factories to keep them working really fast.
Wow.
But on the surface, if you look at the details, very successful businessman. I'm sure his 5-year strategic plan was off the charts brilliant, and he had all the great advisors, and they're looking at all these particulars of their supply chain and their delivery and their cost per unit and all these things. They're really good at business. And conversely, at the exact same time, Gunther Quant is the most prolific businessman in Germany. There's another Nazi, and who was a spy for the Nazis, a really brilliant guy, who also owned factories and also had the same access to Jewish slave labor, and also had the same equipment, had the same client, had the same deadlines, had the same cost per unit. And 1,200 Jewish lives were saved by this man, and not one Jewish slave laborer ever died. And that man's name was Oskar Schindler. Now, what's the difference between Gunther Quant and Oskar Schindler? They're both German Nazis. They're both Third Reich business owners. They both delivered on time to their client. They both, tried to make a cost per margin cost per unit, tried to make a higher margin. On paper, these men were identical. The difference is Gunther Quant saw people as a means to furthering his business. Oskar Schindler saw business as a means to bettering people's lives. And Oskar Schindler is the only Nazi buried in Israel amongst the graves of the righteous because he saved 1,200 Jewish lives. It's an incredible story. And business, I used to leave these really heavy keynotes. I would end the keynote like that. And people are like, oh, what has happened? But I would say you make that choice every single day, whether you're going to see people as a means to furthering your agenda or your whatever, or you're going to see your mission as a means to bettering people's lives. And that's what you're doing.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I love that. I mean, it's so simple, right? And you have to wonder what was driving him to make those decisions, and what was, because that for me it comes from a place of motivation, and that's something I love to dissect for people, is what on the deepest level is your motivation? Because I think when it really comes down to it is your motivation can either come from fear or it can come from vision. And if it's coming from fear, which it sounds like it was for this individual, that he believed that he had to sacrifice someone to drive fear into the hearts of these individuals to work harder. And that's how a lot of businesses are run, is with the sharp stick. And if you don't do this, then you could lose your job or you won't get paid. And so people are living in the state that gets people always living in their sympathetic nervous system. And when you're in that space, you're tunnel vision. So you're not going to be able to think creatively. You're not going to be able to see in solutions. You're not going to be able to innovate. But the people that are able to see beyond that and to help employees and people that they really see how they're helping these people be a part of that vision and really understand it and get it and be in contribution to it, that will get you jumping out of bed every morning. It's just I always find that it's more powerful. But what I find also when stripping away people's motivation, if it's been driven by fear, people's egos are very sneaky in not wanting them to do that because they know that that's what's driven them. That's what's put the roof over their head. It's what's got them to where they've been. So to take that away feels scary because if I don't have something to replace it with yet, if I don't have a vision or what I want to create and I'm not clear on that, I'm not going to strip away my motivation. Then what? My identity is tied up in that. That's scary. I don't want to strip away my identity. Your ego will protect you at all means necessary. It will get super sneaky to protect you from that.
That is for sure. Well, how do you help people identify that?
I really take a look at helping people understand their deepest why. What are the things that you care about the most? And it tends to tie into, something that's impacted you personally. For me, like I said, I experienced the corporate world and saw all of the ways that it really had people feel disconnected. And there were times where I would even, a couple of examples in a company that I was working for, where the CEO was up giving a speech and would say, I remember this verbatim, but said, yeah, we've got our neck on, or our foot on the neck of our company, and they're drowning, and so what do you do when your competition's drowning? You put a hose in their mouth. And everyone's like, yeah, and all excited, and I'm just like, no, this is not me.
Right.
This is not me. And I actually had someone that I was reporting to that came in, a new senior VP, and was told, although everything that I had done had produced incredible success and had raised people up and helped them evolve to future leaders of the company, he told me that he needs me to be more pissed off at my people. So it's things like that really had me realize the misalignments. And so when I look at it that way, that for me said, no, okay, I'm realizing what's not working. And so those were for me the indicators. So I think that's what you have to pay attention to. And then as I started to look back at what was driving me, I started to look at my deeper why. I started to look at the things that mattered for me. And for me, it was, I know that business can be run better because I've seen it and I've done it. Yeah. And so I'm going to go out and I'm going to make that happen because I know the impact that can make. So that to me is how you discover that, is what are the things that matter to you most? What are you, so I'll look at what are you most passionate about, right? And we're really like pull from that, so we'll take experiences and, we'll understand. And just because you're, passionate about tennis, that doesn't mean that you should be a professional tennis player, but we can pull from that. Like, what is it that you love about that? Great. You love to hone your craft, and you love, training. You love to go to the court and work on things. Okay, great. How can we integrate that into a career? And then I'll also look at people's strengths. So what are the things, I like to break it down into two things. Number one, what are your strengths? And then what are the strengths that you want to use? Because that's an important distinction.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good.
Yeah, because that's important, right? You might be strong at something that you actually don't enjoy doing. Right. And then lastly, looking at your values. So what are your values? What are the things that you care about? And that ties back into the why. And then as you start to extract and pull from all of these things, then you look for the intersections. And then you pull together and you start to say, okay, what does this look like in a career? And how can I line up with a company that aligns with these values, that lets me tap into my passions, utilize my strengths, and will have me doing what I want to do? Or if I don't find that in a company, I'm going to start my own. Yeah. I'm going to go make it happen. So that for me is where I start with people, is starting to really explore that and dive into that. And I can usually figure it out pretty quickly with people.
Yeah, that's so cool. That is beautiful. Do you, how much of like healing work do you talk about, or do you invite people to explore outside of the corporate world?
A lot. and the thing with this type of work, and, I know that you know this too, is you do have to meet people where they're at. Yeah. And sometimes in the corporate environment, people won't always be super comfortable to go there right away. And I get that, it's new. And so it'll feel uncomfortable. It might feel unsafe. So I'll really ease in, to meet people on, certain things. So we'll work on we'll work on mindset tools, and we'll work on productivity tools. And that helps us. Those are a big component of what I do for people. But as we start to peel back the onion of what's really getting in the way of you focusing and being productive, and then people start to feel comfortable, people will really open up. And then we can get down to the root, because at the end of the day, when you look at a behavior is always being driven by an underlying belief system.
Yes.
Right? And so like we'll get to the belief system, and then below that is usually something to do with identity. Yep. And so, when you start to peel that back, and if you're only working at the behavior level, the subconscious will always turn back and bring you back and really self-sabotage you back into that behavior that lines up with how you feel about yourself.
That's right. I look at it as trying to prune a tree. It's like, oh, I don't like this fruit that it's bearing. Like, I don't like the orange that my tree's bearing. So I prune back all the bushes or all the branches. But when you prune a tree, it only grows back more robustly. The fruit comes back even more until you address the root. The fruit will continue.
Oh, that's great. I love that.
Produce. So yeah, it's the identity. It's what was said to you. What did you believe? Were you abused? Did you, were you bullied? Were you, whatever? Those are what drive our adult behaviors now. And yeah.
Absolutely. And when you can start to understand the limiting belief systems, and I was just having a conversation with this earlier with Brianna, caveat on a mentor of mine, but we were talking deep into limiting belief systems and, and just touching on this subject of like, it's not about getting rid of these limiting beliefs, right? It's not about destroying them and dissolving them away, but it's, what pieces of ourselves have not been able to be expressed, and have not been able to be welcome. And so we're just like bringing awareness to it. And we're bringing awareness to the conversation. We're bringing awareness to the feeling so that it can feel welcome because it hasn't had a space to be that. Right. And then we understand what actually happened. So, for me, for example, a lot of those limiting beliefs came from when I was young and bullied. And I go back, and then when I'm able to trace back and understand that my subconscious created these stories at 7 when I was getting hit in the face because I looked differently. And so I started to believe certain things about myself. But then I got to look and I got to talk to that individual that did that and realize, he had a tough time at home. Like, he had a lot going on at home. He didn't know what he was doing. I made up that story. He didn't, that wasn't anything else than me making that up. Wow. I get to let that go. And all of the things that have been tied to that then start to unravel, and so that for me is the most powerful work. And sometimes that will take, a little bit of time for someone to feel comfortable to go there. But once you do, that's freedom is what lies on the other side of that, which is, right. I mean, that's what it's about.
That's everything. Yeah. That's what it's about. Freedom. Yeah. I would give everything for us to walk in healthy freedom, just freedom. People right now in 2020, there are many who have forgotten even the inalienable right that a sovereign human has to be free, because we've been driven by a fear narrative of a virus that you can't stop from getting. And all this science and all the masks and all the constant barrage of jackhammering cases. Everyone's afraid. Everyone's in this thing. I'm like, dude, what happened to the humans that crossed the West in wagons and pioneered over the Rocky Mountains and Doug, I mean, what happened to the grit of humanity? We have forgotten that sovereignty and freedom are our truest rights, not safety, not hedging in fear, but living robustly in freedom. And when we are in healthy freedom, that's why I qualified that, because there's nihilistic freedom, and then there's healthy freedom of community, and no legislative body dictates our behaviors, but we, in conscious love for one another, do what is best for one another. I'm just blown away. I'm looking at like two worlds right now. You got me on this tangent. I'm on a tangent right now, but
oh, you're good, brother. You're good.
Freedom.
Yes.
Freedom. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it again. It's freedom. It's not safety. It's not trying not to die. It's fucking living with every fiber of your being, with your cells in alignment with your soul, like freedom. Kingdom or freedom, we choose. Do we want a ruler of the kingdom, or do we want our sovereignty in freedom? That is what humanity must awaken to. And having courage, that's why courage is, I'm so glad you said it earlier. Courage. You can't be free without courage.
No.
None of us can. And the irony of it all is fear is such a thin veil. It's like a sheath. It's so thin, but it's opaque, so you can't see through it. So it gives the presentation that it's thick forever. No, it's literally the thinnest of veils. You just have to have the courage to puncture and push through that. I'm getting fired up right now.
I know, man. I love it. I love that passion. No, it's true. I remember from a very young age being told about this. My uncle was actually, I told you I'm from a small town. My uncle was my social studies teacher. And I remember him telling me this. I remember him saying, you can have You can have freedom or you can have safety. And when you start to take away from one, it's going to pull from the other.
Yeah.
So always realize that there is an equilibrium that this balance goes on. So if you want freedom, yeah, you might not have all of this protection around you from the government, but can you be okay with that? And can you also, are you really falling into this, this perceived freedom that you have? And what I'm witnessing, and I feel like you're speaking into, is this feeling of, the few manipulating the many in a lot of ways. And that to me is not okay, and it feels, what I continue to experience is this like little nudge to see how far you can go. And then if it gets too far, then it's okay. We'll pull it back a little bit. And then when people get used to where we're at and start to get comfortable with something that we would never usually feel comfortable with,
that's right.
We'll go a little farther and we'll see how far we can go. And it keeps going and going. And through that, it starts to not feel so strange anymore. And the best way to do that is to keep people in fear.
That's exactly.
Make them feel like they don't have safety, because then they're willing to sacrifice freedom, because safety is such a basic, it's such a base need and feeling for so many people, is to just feel safe, and they'll give up almost anything for that. But it's not okay to take away freedom to do that.
The irony is too, I'm so glad we're talking about this, because this is important. Giving up freedom for safety, you give up to someone who could or could not make you safe. Meaning,
yes,
if you're giving up your freedom to feel safe, you can only feel safe by a system that has more power over you and others to distance or keep from, an imposed threat. And yet, that's what I say to people. They don't like it, but I was a journalist for a long time. I was a TV reporter on CNN a couple times. I was in small markets, the local markets, San Antonio, back to Seattle. And I have a lot of friends still in media. And talk about the parasympathetic, what is it?
Parasympathetic nervous system?
Yeah, man, they are so beat down in media, and it is by the stick and rod, and then they pay you high enough, and everyone's so traumatized in media. And where I'm going with that is people who believe and just blindly trust media or government officials. I look at them, all these faces or talking heads. If you haven't seen their browsing history, how in the world would you abdicate your own sovereignty of your home and your life and put your trust in someone you don't even know what they browse? You don't know what societies they belong to, all these things. It's crazy. I look around, what world? But all these things have to come to be. People have to see. I think what's going to happen is it's going to encroach until people either wake up, or sadly they don't wake up. And to be very specific and literal, if humanity right now, and I believe we are choosing freedom and sovereignty, I believe that we are ascending, but there are the vocal minority who make the silent majority. And I don't mean politically, this is not politics, just humanity, right? It's like because they're so afraid, people that are afraid make others feel bad, right? The bully that bullied you, he was afraid because he's going to impose his fear and create. So we're entering this phase very soon where everyone's going to make a choice, whether their soul came into these human bodies to finally awaken from the illusion of safety from these entities that are not based in benevolence and goodness. They're based in control and master slave, be it corporations that run by fear, be it governments, be it whatever, religious institutions. They're all the same. It's a pontiff and the pews. And if the pews don't align to the pontiff, and I don't mean Roman Catholicism, I mean thus saith, I am the voice of God to the people, be it the CEO, be it the pastor, priest, whatever, be it the news anchor, be it the politician. And I think the awakening right now is people saying, I'm my own CEO. I'm my own pastor, priest. I'm my own sovereign ruler. I don't need another to tell me what is and what is not. But a lot of people are not there yet.
No, and that's okay. Like, and that's the
It is
part that
okay. Yes.
and that's the part that I have to remind myself too, because I want to see it happen faster.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it does start with, having the sovereign mind, being willing to say, I'm going to believe what feels true for me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to, I'm going to take in opinions from others, but as an observer, and not, I think when we take in news and different things, it's like just believing this is reality and this is what's happening.
Right.
And like, how can we zoom back and just say, okay, I'm observing this.
Yes.
And I'm saying, okay, does this resonate with me? Yes or no. But at the end of the day, I mean, what you're saying is so true, that we're on this fork of the road in the road right now, where we can head in two different directions. And I fully, I follow a belief in my life that, that everything, it does happen for me. I truly believe that, and I follow that. And so I believe that this has happened for us also.
Yes.
As scary and messed up as it's felt in so many ways, the other path that we were going on wasn't working. In so many ways. It was just a little bit of a slower path there. Now things have accelerated, but it's also white space has been created. The cage has been shook to the extent where people have had to look at their lives and say, I didn't love what I was doing in my career before anyway. Right. Or, wow, I had all of this fear and anxiety. I actually need to confront it right now. And I need to get healthy, because if I'm, overweight, or I'm not taking care of myself, or I don't have a strong immune system, I am more likely to get sick and die. Like, all of these things that were underneath and pushed under the rug was pulled away. But the truth is that, the heal for the wound is in the wound itself. And so the wound had to be exposed for us to confront this and heal it. So that's what I see as the possibility, is for this elevation of consciousness, because the cage has been shook and there's been disruption and stimulus for us to look at these things. And that, for me, is where we get to step in and offer perspectives, offer alternatives to what we're being told in other areas, so that we can discover truths for ourselves.
That's beautiful. That's exciting.
I think so too. I'm super excited.
I'm excited too. I am excited for people. I look at the majority of human beings in some way or another have been abused. Yeah. They don't, even those who don't think they've been abused, it's because we have taken words like, I was thinking about this the other day. I don't want to say pedophilia anymore, or molestings or rapings. These words, or not rapings. I want to say it's child rape. That's the right word. It's vile. It's heinous. It's evil. What any form. But the people that do these things give us new terms. Pedophilia, these things that like normalize or soften or smooth out areas that never should have been smoothed out. And instead of looking at the unvarnished truth, like, this is what it is. And where I'm going with all this is that we've been numbed. Our senses have been numbed. The words that we've used have been numb. They're not visceral. They're not electric anymore. We're all saying the same group think, group speak. Even in the consciousness world, even in the spiritual development world, I'm like, bros, what world are you in right now? Like, what are we talking about? I love what you're saying is it's mission, it's healthy corporatism, it's healthy any, mode. It's not about how to make more money or how to hustle faster or how to do these things. Like, that narrative has been playing on a rotation for a very long time. Mm-hmm. Leading us to this very instant.
Yeah, it like helps us go more intensely toward the things that we don't actually want.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, when you think about if change is going to happen, it can't and this is why I love our conversations, because it's not just talking about the things that aren't working. It's talking about, okay, what can we replace that with?
Yes.
What can we, and that's why for me, it's, going into the corporate world, I've got an alternative solution. I've got a way that not only can help people feel better at work, but also, it can drive your business in a way that it never was going to before. So I think for people to feel good about things, they have to have an alternative, and so that's why you look at a lot of the hippie movement of the 60s, it didn't really have a full stronghold because there wasn't an alternative. There was an alternative in place for the things that they were talking about, and for the things that wanted to be created. And so, I think you have to really come with solutions, and we can't just be stuck on problems. And that is also what I see a lot in the conscious world, is fighting and talk about all the things that aren't working. Yeah, I agree. And we have to bring awareness to that, but also what are we doing to bring solutions?
That's
and
right.
I'm not talking about just trying to make more money through creating a program that all of these people can buy so you can talk about being a 7-figure coach.
Right.
That's not what it's about. Like, follow your mission. And
Yes.
if your mission is true, the rest of it will take care of itself.
That's right. That's
Do
right.
what you love, and success will follow. And that's the reward for following your mission. And at the end of the day, I don't feel attachment to those things anyway. And because of that, I find that they come to me more freely.
Yes. Yes. That's right. It's funny. You said, what's not a solution? Being anti something. That's not a solution. Like,
Yeah.
Solution. Well, just getting rid of that, or that's not a solution. That's creating another problem. A solution is, what is the alternative? I think that's brilliant what you just said. It's brilliant. What's the alternative?
There's a consequence to every action.
Yes.
So it's not just a fight against things, but what can we do to replace it with something that will work better?
Yeah. What are you for? This, I'm so thankful to be alive right now.
Me too.
I don't know. I feel like saying, I'm so thankful you're alive right now.
Yeah.
I just think you're such an incredible human, man. You're just such a beautiful soul. I just think you're awesome, man.
Thanks, man. I feel that about you too. And how good does it feel to just say those things and be joyful? That's what I'm hearing from so many people too, is like the people that feel good or have had something good in their life, like, don't want to celebrate it because other people might not be doing as well.
Yeah.
And so that's so we only feel like, so many people feel like they can only be sad, but I'm not playing that game.
No.
I want to, again, let's provide an alternative solution. If you're feeling happy, be happy. If you're feeling sad, it's okay to be sad.
Yeah.
Let yourself be what you are and celebrate the people around you.
Yeah.
And that's key. And something that you said, though, that's triggered something in me that I've really focused on this year is really building close community and tribe. Like, really how important that is. And I know that this will be controversial because people feel like you should only be at home and you should only be with your family. But I think it's incredibly important that you have people that you spend time with and that you grow with and that support you, because mental health is just as important as staying away from a flu. That's from a virus. That it is real, but at the same time, we have to move forward and we have to find new ways of living. So if you're not doing that right now, we've got to do it.
It's not controversial with me. I'll tell you.
Yeah, that's good. And probably then not the people that are listening to this.
Man. Yeah, it is. It's so important. In our energetic field is actually 6-foot radius from our body.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they know, it's not 7 feet, it's not 8 feet, it's not 4 feet. They kept it at 6 feet so that we couldn't even energetically feel each other. This is so nefarious what's happening. And I'm going to say it right now. It is nefarious. It is not true. And if people did not watch the news, if there was no news, if there's no media, if literally an EMP got detonated tonight or today or whatever time someone's listening, and the electricity went out, you would be left looking around and everything would be as it was and as it will be. You look around, you're like, oh, there's my neighbors. No one's just, yeah, people died, but all of a sudden 95% of the flu cases are down in 2020. How's that possible? Wait, they're just changing numbers, and yes, there's virus, but then why do we even have viruses every year? Where does it come from? let's ask the real questions. How did the Sumerian text, the ancient Sumer kings were living like 30,000 years, 40,000 years. Even in the Bible, they were living like 1,000 years. And these ancient, so the Bible's not the only recorded source of people living a very long time. All of a sudden, we're living these short lives, hedging, and like this, we are waking up. I think what I'm most excited about, brother, is as we move into the age of Aquarius and the golden age and the millennial reign of Christ, or the age of the Mashiach, or I mean, all these different narratives for culminating at this exact time. What did they say? People wouldn't die. They would live 1,000 years. Well, how can that possibly be? I think we're going to find out very soon that all these viruses, all these sicknesses, all these, why do we have a pharmaceutical industry when humanity's been living on this planet for a long time with benefits from the earth? And whether it be psychedelics or any municipal, we are part of the earth. Therefore, our genetic code connects with this planet. We are part of this one ecosystem. And then we have forgotten that, listen to this Borg-like anti-human group think, everyone say the same thing, be the same thing, do the same thing, but yet their depression's higher, suicide rates higher, divorce, all these. So the stats actually are, this path is not working. It's not more healthy. We don't watch TV anymore, but what did I turn on the other night? We were watching some clip in YouTube on our Apple TV, and we don't watch cable or anything like that. Is what I mean. Mm-hmm. And an ad came up for a pharmaceutical, whatever. I hadn't seen one because they're not on Netflix, they're not on Amazon Prime, they're not on Apple or Disney Plus, and it was like, you got to be kidding that you literally, someone's probably laughing who wrote this script. Like, do you struggle with, this will help you. This will help you do this, but all side effects will be and now you can live the life. And I was like, wow, they didn't even skip a beat on side effects. We're like, don't go crazy, you will die. Yeah. Everything will turn bad. And then the next line was like, without missing a beat, and live the life you want with whatever it was. Like, this is the greatest form of gaslighting. And this is crazy. But yet we have conditioned to just be like, oh, that's
become normalized.
Yeah, that's normal. Mm-hmm. It's so crazy, man. The world's crazy. I wrote an Instagram a while back, and I said, freedom is a greater virtue than safety. For without freedom, no one is safe.
Amen.
Man, I want to go charge the field of battle with you, brother. Let's go. Let's liberate humanity.
I'm ready.
I think it's so beautiful too, as a man, to show what healthy masculine is. And it's not bravado, facade. It's like, bro, we're just living. Living, and we're loving people and listening to people. And you're a beautiful example of that.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. It's it's the rise of, and what I experienced from you, and I think in this conversation, is the rise of the healthy masculine.
Yes.
It's the rise of the healthy masculine. And that's what that's what the world needs more of.
Yes.
It's not about passivity. We don't want that.
Right.
But it's about using the masculine traits of being decisiveness, using passion and power, but toward good, toward the mission, toward what you care about.
Yes.
Not to prove anything, not to validate yourself in any way, but because you care about it. Because
to liberate others.
Yeah. And when I got to let go of this, and sure, it still pops up for me here and there because it was deep rooted for me, but this feeling of needed to prove myself or needed to be validated by other things, that provided me the freedom to only chase the things that I want to, and to do them because of my deeper why. And that just creates all of the alignment in my life. And, we talked about this a little bit earlier, to circle back to this piece of showing up one way at work and one way at home. If you're doing that, you're never going to be authentic anywhere. So you're always going to feel, I don't know who I am, because you feel like you have to be someone you're not. So if you're doing that in any area of your life, I encourage you to take a look at why. Why am I doing that? If it's for a company, I feel like they want me to show up this way, then that's not somewhere you want to be. And, I feel that in relationships too. If you're showing up and you feel like, I feel like I have to be this way with this person so they accept me. Okay, that's okay. Like, you can love that person from afar, but don't let them be in your circle, because energetically you're not going to feel good about being and releasing more of you and more of you and more of you. And that's the goal. Like, just being fully embodied self and feeling really good about that and really damn proud of who you are. Because that's the point that I've gotten to get to, and the freedom in that and the joy in that is just unparalleled.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And also, when we transgress against our own sovereignty, even the word sovereign that word is yet to seep into so many people's consciousness. So I say it so many times. So it starts to, what does being a sovereign being mean? A sovereign being is fully authentic, because a sovereign being has no one or nothing to prove at any time to anyone, because proving is an indication of a lack of being. If I have to prove to you I'm not being, my beingness is all the proof that anyone will ever need of me. This is me. It's me when I get off this podcast. It's me when I wake up. This is just me. It's me when I go work with clients or do these things. This is me.
Yeah.
I don't have to prove to anyone. And I know, like you said, you attract the higher frequency, the higher vibration. The universe is going to match it's not even woo-woo. It's you dial a radio and you get a TV, you get the station, the old school, like I remember as a kid, you roll that knob.
Oh yeah.
To keep going. That's my best impersonation of it. But that's what we're doing. We're dialing constantly. We're like, are we going to be in gratitude and be authentic and do the inner work? We're dialing all of a sudden
yeah.
And when we're in that space, the things that are in that space will meet us where we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to, before we hop off, I think just talking about different specific modalities that you have done, that I've done, I would love to hear, like, we talked about breath work, we talked about plant medicines, like what have you done in addition to, what have you done? What different modalities have you done to work on healing?
Yeah, a lot. I've explored a lot, because I think this is also important too. And, I think being able to discover and find the things that really work for us is really important. So I've explored a lot, because I'm not going to recommend anything to anyone else that I don't know works for me and that I've embodied. So yeah, to start, one that you mentioned, breath work, is a really big part of my life. And it's something that I practice really consistently. I find that helps clear emotional blocks for me. It helps bring me energy, helps me feel connected to my body, because it creates, doing breath work in a certain process into it creates an energetic environment in your body that's not stable for emotional blockages. So it clears things from your body. It's incredible. And I like to, that's actually a modality that I like to introduce to people in corporations, because it's approachable for people, because it's not, you're not ingesting anything. It's just your body, but sometimes you start to feel emotions without like knowing that you're going to go into the emotion, right?
Yeah,
Which,
yeah.
so it's like you don't have that avoidance, and all of a sudden you start to feel it, and you're like, wow, okay. So it can open people up to, to deeper work. So I really love breath work and highly recommend that. I've sat with plant medicines. I've sat with psilocybin, and I've sat with ayahuasca, and I've sat with a number of different plant medicines and psychedelics, and I've taken some profound lessons and some profound deep healing from those processes, and with that too, and I have to preface that with saying I think it's so important when we do that to do it in an environment that has integration. Yeah, that's key. It's like there's a lot of use of those things right now but more for escapism. And that can also be dangerous, So I think, those things for me have been great, but I've always been really intentional about them. And I've always had integration and support and guidance. And, but through that, I have had some really profound breakthroughs and realizations that, help me see through a different lens and help me see through a different paradigm, which was profound. So that for me also, things like just really taking a look and dissecting my habits. So having a really disciplined morning routine, I think that is massive. Having a morning ritual that I follow every day so that I have control of my mind. My mind doesn't have control of me. So I start every day with meditation and with movement and with yoga to get in touch with my body. And, and taking care of my health. So hydration and adaptogens and different things that I've found that help me really lock into just the truest version of me. That's it. I don't like looking for things anymore. I don't want an edge. I don't want that. I just want to be my best self and I feel at my optimal. So that's another, those are things that I explore. Yoga has been a big part of my life also. Not just the physical practice of yoga that I think we, as a Western society associate with, but the deeper practices of yoga. And I've continued to really peel back the layers of that and integrate that into my life. Man, there's just so many.
And then ALA, as far as like the emotional,
yes.
The experiential, that's why ALA was so profound for me, was the experiential nature of it and going back emotionally to those most traumatic moments. And all that stuff it's so beautiful. And like you said, it's different. It's going to be different for everyone. It's going to be, but there's a lot of people, I'm even seeing people, I really like their content, but they've been, anti-cannabis. I've been seeing these people, like they'll go on a kick, like anti-psychedelics or anti-cannabis or anti-something.
Mm-hmm.
And from my experience, for anyone, I would say that is not the narrative. It's you, because that's another voice telling you what is best for you. You as a sovereign being must find what works. And none of these things are silver bullets. It's all what works for you and what you're called to and blessed, what you bless. One of the things with even cannabis is I bless it and I set my intention. I don't just take it and like, I bless this. And what is my intention here? My intention is to, a couple nights ago, it was to connect all the dots from a higher plane. And so I had an incredible, I just saw things. I got it. Like, it was just, okay. The medicine was doing what I asked it to do and I blessed it. And I think what humanity is getting back to is the basics of humanity, these plant medicines, the emotional healings, the breath work, the stretching, with understanding what our body is doing in these positions and why we do these things and what is the fascia inside our body and what is our pineal gland and why we're waking up from the fog of the matrix. And I guess is one of the things we can maybe end on or want to get your thoughts on. There's a lot of people right now using their effort to change within the matrix, to change things within the matrix. And the matrix is going away. The matrix is being dissolved and crumbling. And I think when the matrix goes, the 3D world of polarity and duality and judgments and this and that, we're literally in a place of love and light with each other. And we're like, what is this? Like, we'll look at each other and just know each other, connect with each other, be with each other. The people who have these beautiful abilities that have tried to work within the 3D matrix world are going to thrive and flourish. Just think about how much effort is used to make a system work that strips away our sovereignty. When people use that same energy and effort and intention to all of a sudden, we all can make the world we want it. It's going to be so incredible, brother.
I feel that, man.
It's so incredible.
Yeah. That's why I love working with leaders, because they've got traits that can empower and lead others, right? People follow them for a reason. And so that's a part of my mission, is for people to get, clear on their why of using those leadership skills for good, for the reasons that really matter. Because once we activate our leaders and for them to really understand, then we start heading in a direction much quicker where we want to head. So that's it, man. Beautifully said. And, and I see you as a continuous pillar for that, and that's something that I really admire about you, is your consistency with what you believe in and what you stand for. And the things that you said are so true. The way that you show up here is the way that we show up on a call. And sometimes you show up, you'll be like, oh man, I can't believe this. I'm pissed. I'm like, awesome, let's work through it. And you do, but you just always come as you are. And I think the more that we can do that, the better we'll all be, because then we can support each other. And that to me is a beautiful thing. And that's about tribe and community, because at the end of the day, what you were just talking about, we're all one community. We're all one tribe. There's no separation between us. And I think when we can start to realize that that's not just a saying, but that is reality, energetically, that there's no difference between us and the plants and each other, that really is going to free things up. So I think, as you're talking about dissolving the matrix, I think first understanding what our reality is in the world that we live in, we can realize that it takes some of the pressure off. It kind of not makes things feel so heavy for people. And so that's what I believe in. And that's what I stand for, is the evolution of consciousness. Because if we have that, I believe that all of the rest of the problems that we face take care of themselves.
Yes.
Because there's more awareness around them.
Amen. That's right. Brother Zach, thank you for coming on. That was fun. I love talking to you. I'll put your handle in the show notes, so everyone please check out Zach. And brothers and sisters, enjoy this time. Enjoy this time. You are about to see so many things that you would have thought impossible in the future, that it will take place for the good. For good, love and light. That's all. That's what's happening. All these acts that are taking place to push humanity to the point of waking up and snapping out of this sleep and fog and saying, what has happened? When did I lose my sovereignty? When did I become a slave to these systems? They're all pushing until you awaken. And you will awake. I know that. Many of you are awake right now, but there is a mass awakening. It is the great awakening taking place all over the planet. And all of humanity will celebrate and rejoice at once, because humanity is beautiful. Never forget that. Humanity is beautiful. Yes, many have forgotten, but this is the time of remembering. I'm Lucas Mack. Thank you so much for joining, and I look forward to speaking with you on the next episode. Thank you, brothers and sisters, for listening. For support in your journey, go to my website, lucasmack.com.